Most of us have a room or two in our homes that are either too cold in the winter or too hot in the summer. Dennis Brachfeld of About Saving Heat helps fix that problem by making homes more energy efficient. That usually means lower utility bills, something I think all of us would agree is a good thing. But the real benefit, Dennis says, is that it makes your home more comfortable. Dennis started About Saving Heat in 1975, more than 35 years ago. Since then, he and his crews have worked on more than 30,000 homes. 2 of them belong to me. Dennis has worked on homes that I owned in Washington Park and in Inglewood, and did a good job both times. I recently followed Dennis while he checked out a house in Washington Park, where he's done work before. The family there wanted to know what the next step is that they can take to make their house more energy efficient and more comfortable. I'll let Dennis take it from here.
This is an old house. We heard it was 1895, and it's had 2 additions put on. And we've actually done some work here previously, and he wants to see what the next steps might be. So the first thing I do is walk around the outside and get the footprint of the house, and then I always ask the clients which rooms are cold in the winter, which rooms are warm in the summer, and we always want to do more to their adverse comfort areas, because if you do the simple thing like insulate the attic, and let's say their downstairs family room is the coldest, insulating the attic, yes, is going to save them energy and money, but the family room is going to get colder because the furnace is going to be running less. So you want to do more to the family room and impact the family room, and that might be the room that's over the crawl space. That might be more important than the attic. And I also believe in the 80-20 rule, that very often we can get 80% of the benefit with 20% of the effort, and that's what we try to target. When we do an energy audit, these are kind of the websites we look for when we're doing our high-tech energy audits, because spiders build a web where they sense air movement. It's like picking a good fishing hole. If there's air movement, there could be bug traffic. So a lot of times on the inside, I'll look for spider webs too, and if there's one corner of the window that has a spider web, that's the corner that's leaking, because the spider builds the web there to catch the bugs. And then here is an addition, and underneath this addition there's a crawl space, because that's a crawl space vent, and very often that's going to be colder than over a basement, so I'm going to suspect there might be a problem here. The new section does have soffit vents that lets the cool air in the summer, which is good, and it should have some high roof vents to let the hot air out in the summertime too. We'll double check that when we get in the backyard. Okay, I guess then we can go inside.
We'll go inside momentarily, but first a few observations from Dennis about how he approaches his work and why so many homes in Colorado need help when it comes to being energy efficient.
I really focus on comfort. We make your house more comfortable, and the bonus is you're going to also have an economic payback. We're in and out of a house within 1 to 3 days, the longest, and we're in and out before the clients get tired of us and before we get tired of their clients. And it's very rewarding work, because a lot of times when we're working on a job for 3 days, we come back the second day and they say, hey, you know that section you worked on yesterday? We can feel a difference. Colorado is in the bottom 1/3 of energy efficiency houses. People are shocked when they buy a house that was built in '78 and has no wall insulation.
Dennis likes to find the one thing in each home that will make the biggest difference. The one thing that he found at this home was surprising, at least it was to me, because it involves removing some insulation to make one of the rooms in the house warmer during the winter. We'll get to that shortly, but before we do, here are 3 tips from Dennis that you might be able to use to make your house more energy efficient and more comfortable. Here's Dennis.
You have a fan switch here. So here, as fan, it says auto and on. Right. And we turn it on, that should make the fan come on. Now this is great, and I'm going to say 80% of the houses I go on and I flip this and they don't have air conditioning, it doesn't come on. When you do have air conditioning, they do wire it up. Right. But if you don't have air conditioning, it doesn't work. So this, I use this fan during the heating season and the cooling season. I turn on this fan when I'm doing this audit in the winter and the furnace is running. I wait till it cycles off. I turn on this fan switch for people who have it wired up but never knew what it did.
After the heat cycles off.
As soon as it cycles off, right, it's quiet. I hit the switch and I go to one of the heat vents, you know, that are usually down on the floor.
Right.
And you probably have one out here, but
I do.
and there's 90-degree air coming out of there when I
Right.
turn the fan on. And I tell my clients, that's heat you paid for that you wouldn't have delivered. And if it can't go out the ducts because it's not blowing, it goes up the chimney. So in the winter, when it's really cold and your furnace is cycling on and off a lot, it never cools off in there. It really pays to heat this. And in the summer, when people are running air conditioning, even it's down in the basement, you've heard of air conditioning's icing up. It's because all the cold air gets stuck down there. And you can deliver much more of the cooling you spent, even if you do have air conditioning.
Right.
So I don't use mine in the spring and fall because it's not going to save any energy to run that fan.
Okay.
But I've gotten feedback from my neat-nick clients, and I'm not a neat-nick, that they notice when they run their fan, they do less dusting because you're filtering your air 24/7. These blinds, actually, the decorators have you close them down like at night. Warm air is rising, and so you're directing your warm air right out the window. The physics of heat is heat does not rise.
Right.
Heat goes from hot to cold. When you heat a fluid like air or water, it rises. So when I'm sitting here and the glass, even in a good dual pane, let's say on a cold day, could be 60 degrees, and my skin temperature is close to 90, I'm trying to average the two and I'm trying to heat up that glass to 75.
Right.
So I say if you simply turn it up, one, your body heat can't radiate directly to the glass because it's hitting this and it doesn't see the glass, and the warm air rises up and gets deflected back into the room. But it is critical that it sits on the sill because this actually insulates, and it gets really cold on a 30-degree day. It can get about 12 degrees colder back there, and that cold air is heavy and it falls down and spills out.
Right.
And then it sucks more heated air in from the sides. And a lot of people feel that draft, and it's a convective draft, and they end up replacing their windows. But it's really, I asked them, do you notice that draft on a windy day or a cold day?
Right.
If they really think about it, they say, oh yeah,
Right.
it's really a cold day, it's not a windy day. So and you can put a towel here or something, but it should sit on the sill. Before there was fans, like when this house originally was built, and that's why this house originally had true double hung windows.
Right.
They were probably
No
painted
doubt.
shut at the top.
Yeah.
Is before there were fans, there were double hung windows. So in the summertime when it's hot, if you open up the bottom window all the way and there was no breeze, there'd be no air movement.
Right. Doesn't do much good.
You open the top a little bit, the hot air wants to go out because hot air rises, not heat, but hot air rises. It goes out, you open up the bottom a little bit, it'll pull in the cool night air. The cool night air hits the floor and you set up this big convective current in the building.
Yeah.
And no wind outside, just convection. The building code, when they had to build this, said that these floors had to be insulated. So this insulation in the floor is actually hurting it. So a simple thing would be to take the insulation out of this floor.
Really.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And there's a lot of heat because your furnace is down here,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of waste heat down here, and it heats up the air, and the warm air rises. It would heat up this floor. Ideally, what we'd like to do, and we can go through that old foundation, because that old foundation, and make a hole somewhere near the furnace and get the waste heat from the furnace to come into this section. And if we do that, because if that's running a lot, there's a lot of waste heat, just like your car engine. And if it comes all in this way and can heat up this floor, that could solve your problem. You have to take out some of these bricks, which would be relatively easy, and let this warm air migrate into that cold space, and the perimeter wall is really well insulated. Might make sense. Because right now, all this waste heat and all these ducts is radiating to this cold wall.
Exterior wall.
And we wanted to go that way.
Yeah.
That's where we wanted to go. Okay, that's the number one thing we could do. So we found the number one thing to do. Is get more of this waste heat floating that way.